welcome back to Serial Killer Monthly Season 2, Episode 2 is my pick. And I realized before we even started this, when I was printing the pages out and she was sitting right here and I was sitting over there, that I never even told her who I picked. And I was like, oh. So this is Rodney Alcala. We just looked up the pronunciation of that name and the guy was like, Alcala. So
because it's like a Spanish name. I don't know why my throat made that noise, but
so we're saying Alcala, alkaline, I don't know. But he is also known as the dating game killer. If you've never heard of his name before, you've probably heard of the dating game killer. His full name is Rodrigo Jacques Alcala. He was born on August 23rd, 1943 in San Antonio, Texas, and he was the third of 4 children. His parents were Raul Alcala Bucor and Ana Maria Gutierrez. I'm on Duolingo learning Spanish, okay? Just let me be if I don't get some of these right. I'm trying my best. In 1951, his father moved the whole family down to Mexico. And then 3 years after he moved them to Mexico, he abandoned them.
it was like a lot of work for nothing.
Yeah, like, hey, we're gonna move to Mexico and then I'm going to abandon you. Okay. 3 years later, in 1954, Alcala was 11 years old and his mother moved the family back to the United States and they went and lived in LA. Now, when it came to his schooling, he was considered academically gifted and he was pretty popular among all of his peers, which I feel like that
It's a common...
Yes, they're so academically gifted. They're so freaking smart. Their IQ is Einstein level.
And people usually say about a serial killer, they were either like the quiet kid, nobody really talked to him, or they were like the nicest person you've ever met.
And he was going to private schools because he was so smart. And he went to private schools all the way up until he graduated from Cantwell Sacred Heart of Mary High School. I think that's a Catholic school. He took part in track and cross country and was on the yearbook planning committee. So he was also doing quite a bit extra stuff. Like, he had hobbies that he enjoyed. In 1961, Alcala turned 17 and he joined the U.S. Army. He joined to become a paratrooper and he served as a clerk.
That also seems like a common thing.
His commanding officer said he was manipulative, vindictive, and insubordinate. He was disciplined on several different occasions for assaulting young women. In 1964, he was described to have a nervous breakdown and hitchhiked from Fort Bragg, North Carolina to his mother's house in California.
Yeah,
now,
that's what I do when I have a mental breakdown.
Now, North Carolina's all the way over here on the East Coast. California's all the way on the West Coast. That's cross country. He was then diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder by a military psychiatrist.
Also seems to be a common denominator in a lot of serial killers.
Yes.
Not a ton of the ones that we've covered.
But they did have some mental issues.
Yeah, just
like,
in general, like the antisocial personality disorder seems to be like a...
Didn't Eileen have like the borderline personality disorder?
So.
And his IQ at the time was estimated to be 135. That's well above average. He was then discharged from the military on medical grounds. And now, this is throughout the whole course of his life. All of the diagnoses that he acquired were narcissistic personality disorder, borderline personality disorder, and malignant narcissism with psychopathy and sexual sadism comorbidities. After he was discharged from the Army, he went to the UCLA School of the Arts and Architecture. He then studied film under Roman Polanski at NYU, which is New York University.
I remember the morning was nice and warm because I wore the dress that my nanny had crocheted for me.
On September 25th, 1968, Alcala lured 8-year-old Tally Shapiro into his Hollywood apartment. She was staying at the chateau with her family. Alcala approached her on her way to school and pulled up beside her in his car.
I guess asked if I needed a ride to school, and I told him I didn't talk to strangers.
And he pulled up alongside of her a little further, kept trolling her.
And that's when he told me he knew my parents. And I really didn't want to get in the car, but I was raised to respect my elders. I got in the car, that's when he asked what time my school started, And then that's when he realized that we had plenty of time and he was going to swing by and show me a poster. You know, I didn't know to fear people.
He drove to his apartment and told Shapiro he wanted to show her a picture.
The moment I felt danger was when he wanted to go by his place. And I remember wanting to jump out of the car.
A man named Donald Haynes witnessed this and called the police.
So the Good Samaritan, he actually followed the car to a residence where the man took the little girl out of the car and walked her inside, and that didn't look right.
And he calls the police. He says, you know, this is real hinky looking, I don't like it, there's this little girl, you know, I think you ought to check it out.
When the police arrived, they found Shapiro in a pool of her own blood after being beat with a steel bar and raped.
I don't remember going up to the apartment, and I don't remember anything after that.
I was driving down Sunset heading toward West Hollywood when I received a call to go see a man about a possible kidnapping. Right was a dining room, to the left was a living room, and straight ahead was a kitchen. And here was this little girl, blood all over the place, clothes, shoes, and a dress thrown to one side. There was coins on the floor, and she had this steel bar across her neck, which probably weighed 2 pounds. I looked at her, I thought she was dead, she wasn't breathing. The other officers came around, we were looking for the suspect. I went back to check on Telly, and I just couldn't leave her there like that. And as I went back in the kitchen, she started gagging, Telly. So then that put everything into high gear.
She was alive but in a coma for 32 days and needed months of recovery. Alcala had fled the scene.
But when I was yelling, the officer that was covering the back door thought I was asking for help. So he ran to the front to help me. We later found out the suspect escaped through the back door.
And after he did that, he was evading arrest. There was a warrant out for his arrest. So you know what he did? He fled to New York. Great. And this is when he enrolled at NYU. He also started using the name John Berger.
That's a strange name to pick. Why do they always
It sounds more real than Harry Gordon though.
Harry Gordon. What was the other one?
E.P. McGovern.
E.P. McGovern.
Cornelia Criley was a 23-year-old Trans World Airlines flight attendant. On June 12, 1971, she was found raped and murdered in her Manhattan apartment. She was strangled with her own nylon stockings. It is believed that she had met Alcala when she was moving into her new apartment and had accepted his help to move some furniture. Her murder remained unsolved until 2011. I know that that's quite a long time ago, but back then, like this happened in 1971 and it took until 2011 to solve her murder. That's crazy.
The fact that 2011 was even that long ago kind of makes me uncomfortable. In 1971, Alcala got a job at a New Hampshire arts camp. Camp New Beginnings in the village of George's Mills on Lake Sunapee. He was a counselor for children and was using the name John Berger.
So he changed it. He changed it to like actual burger, but it used to be B-E-R-G-E-R, but now it's B-U-R-G-E-R.
Like a hamburger? The FBI had put Alcala on a list of 10 most wanted fugitives in the beginning of 1971. A few months later, 2 of the campers noticed his photo on an FBI poster at the post office. Well, that'll really ruin your day. In August, Alcala was arrested and extradited to California.
I understand why you would change your name, but you should have like put a wig on or something. I don't know.
A mustache.
Because like your face is your face. It doesn't matter what your name is. If people recognize you by your face, you're gonna get caught.
At this point, Tali Shapiro's family had moved to Mexico and they refused to let her testify. She was the primary witness. Without her, prosecutors were not willing to charge Alcala with rape and attempted murder. He was only convicted with child molestation. Since it was a lesser charge, why on God's green earth is that a lesser charge?
You molested a child.
Since it was a lesser charge, what do you mean?
What do you mean?
We're not going to charge him with rape and attempted murder, so we'll charge him with a lesser charge.
That's still like 30 years right there, buddy.
It's not, because
No.
they charge these people with the minimum that they can give them. I don't know why. Give me back the death penalty. I'll say it again. Since it was a lesser charge, he was only sentenced to 3 years. In 1974, after 34 months, he was paroled.
Less than 2 months after being released, he was rearrested and convicted for assaulting a 13-year-old girl. If he was still in prison, that wouldn't have happened.
They still do that to this day.
Yes.
This was 60 years ago. Or longer. I don't know. I don't do math. But they still... People that get these charges, they're like, oh, 18 months.
You can be paroled after a year, though. Like, if you diddle little kids, death penalty.
Like, if you're in for whatever you're in, okay, great, serve your time. For anything to do with a child, you should just be done existing.
And then the fact that the other prisoners in there who were, like, in there for reasons that not of a child, they think that that is disgusting. Like, they could do, like, the most heinous things on earth. Doesn't have to do with a child. Be in there, somebody else comes in who did something to a kid, and those people are so pissed that they will kill that person.
And usually, if somebody did something to a child, they will put them in segregation so that they don't get beat up in Gen Pop. They will separate them so that they're safe. No, put them in there.
She was identified in court records as Julie J. And the reason this happened is because she accepted what she thought was a ride to school.
Yeah, people were way too trustworthy back then.
Alcala served 2 years, then was once again paroled in 1977 and was a registered sex offender.
It really does nothing.
No.
Just keep them in there. It just makes me so mad.
Yeah.
I'm sorry you have to hear me complain, but I'm not that sorry. In 1977, after his second release, they just keep letting him out. His LA parole officer permitted him to travel to New York City. Why? This was an unusual thing since he was a repeat offender and a known flight risk. Yeah, precisely. I don't know why did you do that?
Yeah, what kind of parole officer did you have?
An idiot, I guess. NYPD investigators believe that only a week after returning to Manhattan, he killed a 23-year-old Ellen Jane Hoover, who was the daughter of a nightclub owner, Herman Hoover, and the goddaughter of Dean Martin and Sammy Davis Jr. She was last seen at her New York apartment on July 15, 1977. On the same day, her date book showed that she was supposed to have an appointment with a John Berger. This is the B-E-R-G-E-R instead of like hamburger this time. I don't know why he's swapping it around.
Like, just switching one letter isn't going to,
Your name still sounds the same, buddy.
Your name is still Alcala.
Later on in 1977, the FBI got a tip about Alcala's 1971 arrest in New Hampshire. Alcala was questioned and admitted to knowing who Hoover was. Investigators weren't able to arrest him since they hadn't found her body. In 1978, her remains were discovered buried under heavy rocks on a hillside overlooking the Hudson River. This was near John D. Rockefeller's estate, where later a model would report that Berger had taken photos of her.
In 1977, he started working at the LA Times as a typesetter. These days, if you have that sort of criminal record, when you go to a job, they know. They know what you've done, and they will not hire you. And so back then, the fact that you could go anywhere and get a job and carry on as a normal person.
Yeah, it's really easy to do a background check now.
You can even do background checks, like, just by paying, like, $30 to a website. You can get a background check on somebody. Like, literally anybody.
It doesn't even matter if you're an employer or a landlord is the word I was looking for.
Well, I know what a lot of people do when they're on dating apps and they meet somebody. They'll do a background check before they go on a date with that person just to make sure.
Good idea, though.
He was interviewed by members of the Hillside Strangler Task Force. Now, the Hillside Strangler was a completely different person. Alcala had been ruled out as the Strangler, but had still been arrested and served a short sentence for marijuana possession. During this time in his life, he had convinced hundreds of young men and women that he was a professional fashion photographer and took pictures of them for his portfolio. Later, a Times coworker said that Alcala shared his photos with workmates, and the guy said, quote, "I thought it was weird, but I was young. I didn't know anything. When I asked why he took the photos, he said their moms asked him to. I remember the girls were naked." Leanne Leadham was 17 when she was photographed by Alcala in 1979. She said, "He said he was a professional, so in my mind I was being a model for him." She also said when he showed her his portfolio, there was spread after spread of naked teenage boys.
Back around this time, it was really common for people to scam as a photographer and be like, "Oh, you're perfect, you're gonna make it big time, I'm gonna take pictures of you," and they would just do it to like get money out of these people. But people would fall for it and be like, "Oh my god, they think I'm gonna be a model, like I'm gonna go to LA, I'm gonna go to Hollywood," like this would happen a lot. So it's not like him doing this wouldn't have been, everyone wouldn't have been like, "What the hell?" Like,
And this took place in LA.
that's why he's doing that. In 1978, Alcala became a contestant on The Dating Game, which was a popular game show with the host Jim Lang. He was introduced as a successful photographer. Between takes, you might find him skydiving or motorcycling.
Number one is a successful photographer who got his start when his father found him in the dark room at the age of 13, fully developed. Between takes, he might find him skydiving or motorcycling. Please welcome Rodney Alcala. Rod, welcome.
A fellow contestant, Jed Miles, said he was a very strange guy with bizarre opinions.
Next, we welcome to this very stage a confirmed bachelor who believes in life, liberty, and the happiness of pursuit. He is an actor, a snorkel buff, and he's from New York, New York, Jed Mills. Jed, good luck to you.
Alcala ended up winning the competition and won a date with Cheryl Bradshaw.
And it's time to meet our young lady for game number one, and here she is. Here is a young lady with a wealth of experience. She once earned a living massaging feet, but she quit when her boss suggested that she work her way up. Then she taught school in Phoenix, Arizona, and now she's here to educate our three bachelors in the art of amour. Welcome, if you will, sensational Cheryl Bradshaw. Hello, Cheryl.
She refused to go out with him because she thought he was creepy.
I'm going to ask you a question. Will that date be bachelor number one, bachelor number two, or bachelor number three? Who gets the dates?
Well, I like bananas, so I'll take one.
Number one, bachelor number one, all right.
Good woman.
And that's good, because if she would have went out with him, she'd be dead. There's no doubt in my mind that he was on that game show, and if he won, he was going to murder the person he went out with. And now we're going on a crime spree. No, we aren't.
Not us.
Not us. Him.
Burger.
We're about to tell you about it. On November 9th, 1977, 18-year-old Jill Terry Barcombe was killed by Alcala. She was from Oneida, New York. Her body was disposed of on a dirt path near Mulholland Drive in LA. She was found in a fetal position and naked from the waist down. There were signs of sexual assault, and she was strangled with a pair of blue rope ties and beaten. There were also 3 bite marks on her right breast.
Didn't that happen?
The Ripper Crew.
What a weird, why are you doing that?
At first, the authorities thought she was a victim of the Hillside Strangler, but once Kenneth Bianchi and Angelo Buono were arrested and neither of them confessed or were convicted, they realized the case was unrelated.
On December 16th, 1977, 27-year-old nurse Georgia Marie Wickstead was found dead in her Malibu apartment. She was last seen driving another nurse, Barbara Gale, home from a bar. The next day, when she did not show up for work, Gale and the other co-workers reported her missing. Once police arrived at her apartment, they found signs of forced entry. She was found naked on her bathroom floor, strangled with her nylons. Stop doing that. That's so... It's wrong and it's terrible either way, but just using somebody's possessions to strangle them? Just, I don't know why that bothers me so much. Just stop it.
Just don't do it at all. Don't kill people.
Her skull had been bashed in and her genitals were mutilated. Prosecutors used DNA evidence and a handprint found at the crime scene to later convict Alcala.
On June 24th, 1978, 31-year-old legal secretary Charlotte Lee Lamb was found dead in the laundry room of her apartment complex in El Segundo. There were signs of sexual assault. She had been beat and strangled with a shoelace and was posed with her hands behind her back. They used DNA from the scene to later match to Alcala.
On February 14th, 1979, 15-year-old hitchhiker Monique Hoyt was picked up by Alcala in Riverside County. He drove her to his apartment and then raped her. Then they traveled to a secluded mountain area in Joshua Tree, California. He took photos of her while he was molesting her. He bound and gagged her and began to assault her again. He bludgeoned her in the head. She was able to escape when Alcala went into a gas station bathroom on the way back to Riverside County. She filed a police report and Alcala was arrested, but his mother paid his bail.
What you doing, woman?
Knock it off.
Quit. On June 13th, 1979, 21-year-old Jill Marie Parento left work early to go to a baseball game. She was a computer key punch operator, and when she didn't come into work the following morning, the police went to her apartment in Burbank. They found signs of forced entry. She was found dead, naked on the bathroom floor, posed with pillows under her shoulders. She had been beaten, strangled, and sexually assaulted. The killer cut himself crawling through a window, and the blood evidence would later show that Alcala was the killer. One of her friends, Catherine Bryant, testified that together they had met Alcala at a club several times before.
What I find kind of interesting is that when they don't show up for work for one day, they send the police to their house. Which is a good thing because obviously it's something that needed to happen. But I feel like nowadays if you don't show up to work, they're just like, okay.
You're fired.
Like, they're not going to send somebody looking for you.
No. But back then no one had a phone. Like they probably had landlines. And I feel like if she was the type of person to go to work every single day and then just not show up without notifying anybody, I feel like they'd be like, oh, something's not right, like she never does this. Like how when I was really sick and you didn't hear from me for like a day, you were like, you were about to call my mom.
I looked up her mom's phone number online, found it, and was like, I'm gonna call her, I'm gonna do it.
But then I woke up.
She's like, I'm just really sick. On June 20th, 1979, 12-year-old Robin Christine Samso from Huntington Beach disappeared while she was riding a borrowed bicycle to her ballet class. 12 days later, her body was found decomposing in the LA foothills, dumped off Santa Anita Canyon Road. She had been beat, stabbed, and sexually assaulted. Her friends told the police that a stranger had approached them on the beach asking to take their pictures. The detectives got a sketch of the photographer, and Alcala's parole officer recognized him.
In July of 1979, Alcala was arrested for the third and final time. And at this point, he was held without bail.
Thank goodness.
In May of 1980, he went on trial for Samso's murder and was found guilty. In June, he was sentenced to death.
Thank you.
In 1984, the California Supreme Court overturned the verdict due to jurors being improperly informed of his prior sex crimes. In May of 1986, a second trial began, and he was again convicted and sentenced to death. In 1992, Alcala filed a federal habeas corpus petition. If you don't know what that is, neither do I.
Habeas corpus.
Why did you?
Habeas corpus.
Habeas corpus.
Habeas corpus is a writ requiring a person under arrest to be brought before a judge or into court, especially to secure the person's release unless lawful grounds are shown for their detention. I don't know what any of that means either.
What does that mean? We are no closer to knowing what it is.
In the simplest form, a writ of habeas corpus requires that person who is in custody to be brought before a judge or court, and that they be able to challenge that custody.
So he's challenging his verdict.
Habeas corpus is used to attack an unlawful detention or illegal imprisonment, so he's trying to say that he shouldn't be there.
That was not unlawful. He killed people. In 2001, a United States District Court judge granted it, which overturned the conviction. In 2003, that decision was upheld in part because a witness was not allowed to support Alcala's contention that the park ranger who found Samso's body had been Hypnotized by police investigators.
The hell does that even mean?
I don't know. In 2003, Orange County investigators learned that Alcala's DNA matched semen left at the rape murder scenes of 2 women in LA. More evidence linked him to the murders of 4 additional women in 2004. While incarcerated, he wrote a book, You the Jury, where he claimed he was innocent in the Samso case and suggested a different suspect. Hey, listen, I didn't do this, but I think this guy over here is a good contender.
All those other things, yeah, maybe that. But this, I didn't do that.
He filed 2 lawsuits against the California penal system for a slip and fall incident and for refusing to provide him a low-fat diet. Now tell me why you need a low-fat diet in prison. In February 2010, Alcala stood trial on 5 joined charges that were DNA matches. For this trial, he decided that he was going to be his own attorney.
There should be some earrings, some pictures with earrings.
During a 2-hour, often rambling closing argument Monday afternoon, accused serial killer Rodney Alcala, who is defending himself in the death penalty trial, sat at the counsel table and spoke in a dull monotone.
For 5 hours, he played the roles of both interrogator and witness, asking himself questions and addressing himself as Mr. Alcala in a deeper than normal voice and then answering them. But he did not attempt to dispute the 4 charges.
So he was just letting him know that he's a wacko by talking to himself?
Apparently.
Alcala could not make his laptop computer project on the large courtroom screen, and he often scrambled to find photos and other exhibits. Alcala spent some of his argument attacking the credibility of Marianne Connolly, 12-year-old Robin Samso's mother. Alcala is accused of kidnapping and murdering Samso in 1979.
The jury convicted him of all 5 counts of first-degree murder. Shapiro was a surprise witness during the penalty phase. In March of 2010, he was sentenced to death for the 3rd time. After this conviction, New York authorities said they didn't want to pursue Alcala anymore because of his status as a convict awaiting execution. In January, a Manhattan grand jury indicted him anyway for the murders of Criley and Hoover. He was extradited to New York in 2012 and said he wasn't guilty for both counts. In December of 2012, he changed his pleas to guilty and wanted to go back to California to pursue his appeals of the death penalty conviction. Honestly, it's been so long, you're old now, just give it up.
Yeah.
Let it go. Knock it off. On January 7th, 2013, a Manhattan judge sentenced Alcala to an additional 25 years to life. So good luck with that one, buddy. New York got rid of the death penalty in 2007. On July 24th, 2021, Alcala died of a heart attack at the hospital in Kings County at 77 years old. And he fought right to the end to get out of there.
Like it, comment, subscribe, do all 3 things. Let us know how we're doing. Questions, comments, concerns. You're probably concerned for the well-being.
I'll sound better next time I read. I was sick a week ago. I got over it, but I still sound like crap. There's a hair on my lip.
But yeah, we will see you guys next time for another creepy video. Bye. Bye.
Spirit fingers.